Here's what I tell people. A fish thinks from the head down. Everything is your responsibility. Everything is your praise and everything is your fault. It is your company. You started it. It's your vision. Now, how do I become an effective CEO? It's simple.
Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Evolution Podcast. With me today are, as usual, Ethan P. Heisey.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to be here.
And Mr. Johnson.
Always a pleasure, guys. Hope today you'll get something out of this episode as well.
Awesome. And today we are here to, first of all, start this kind of like we're trying to time our podcast now for 20-minute snippets. This is because we think we might squeeze a lot of value in 20 minutes for you guys. If you think this is the right format, let us know. If you think you'd like to listen for more time each episode, let us know as well. We would like to hear your feedback. Be sure to send it to us, via WhatsApp if you're in the Exponential Freedom group, or if you're in the Commit First group on WhatsApp, or if you can just reach out to us via Instagram DMs or LinkedIn DMs. Be sure to reach us and just like send a message and let us know. Sounds good? Okay. Also, just if I'm already on this topic, please review us on iTunes and Apple Podcast and Spotify because it means the world to us. Okay. Enough about us. Let's talk about you guys. All right. Now, we wanted to talk to you guys today about how to structure the perfect deal. It's something that came up specifically for me in my business, and that's why I asked Mr. J. And I think it's something that Ethan and I could definitely learn from. So, Mr. J, like, how do you structure the deal? How do you structure that? And just to say, like, for me right now, I'll give my context to it. It's like I'm growing my business and, all kinds of like partnerships, because when you want to grow, you want to grow with the right people. You want to surround yourself with amazing people that will contribute to your growth and wealth. And in order to bring in those people in, you got to say, hey, you have this, like, you will lead this part of my business and we will cut a deal, so we both enjoy the benefits. But it's usually for people who are now coming into some sort of part of the business to now run it or whatever. So it's like, if you find the right partnerships, all of us know that we will grow. And this is the thing that we should always look for, right? Because we cannot do everything by ourselves. But how do we structure deals like that of partnerships and whatnot?
Well, the first thing I would like to say, when you're looking to structure a deal, any business deal whatsoever, be it a partnership, joint venture agreement, there are many capacities. One can join together, join forces, a merger, if you will. There are acquisitions of company, mergers and acquisitions. So when you start talking about partnerships, the first thing I look at, who am I partnered with and have I vetted them? A lot of times people get in bed with individuals and things might look great on paper, but they are not very well as far as chemistry wise and business wise. They can face some challenges. So the first thing I would do, first of all, when you're looking at partnering with anyone, vet that individual, do your due diligence, and sit and talk with that person. I mean, obviously you have some mutual interests. You guys are looking to form a partnership. So the first thing I'm going to do is vet the individual. After I vet the individual, I want to really see what is the benefit of us partnering. What is the true goal? What is the true objective? And is it feasible for us to actually do so? A lot of times we go into business dealings, and it's nothing wrong with being optimistic, but one must also be realistic in their expectations. So with that being said, you want to vet that individual, do your due diligence, make sure they are who they say they are, that they can do the things that they say they can do. These are the things that are rub you the wrong way. Another thing I would advise to as well is when you get in a partnership in business, you want to have great attorneys. Your paperwork protects your relationship. Many of us don't like dealing with attorneys and dealing with agreements and things of that nature. And I get it. Believe me, I've been there, done that. And it's just part of it, that the hard thing you have to do to move forward in business. So the next thing you're going to want to do is to make sure you have great attorneys, someone who can review your business documents, make sure that your contracts are legal and also enforceable. Most people don't realize just because you have an agreement in place with each other doesn't mean that agreement is automatically enforceable. I learned this because I have an attorney who just specializes in contract law, and Dr. Claudia Signo Leon, she's an attorney from Harvard. It's been my attorney for over 20 years. And when I was young in business, she would make me literally sit down and read through every word, hitherto, all that legal jargon, and make sure I understood what was being explained to me in the agreement I was signing. So let's just recap that. You're going to want to vet that individual, number one. Number two, you want to have a great attorney. Number three, you're going to make sure this person can do what they say they can do. When you start looking at partnerships as well, also, you want to check the financial strength of whomever you're partnering with. Now, if it's a money acquisition where they're coming in, they're partnering with you and they're buying into your company, knowing the value of your company, number one.
Yeah.
Most people don't have a true assessment of what their company is really worth. A lot of times numbers are often inflated, and sometimes, believe it or not, they're deflated. They're not an accurate assessment. So you want to check the financials. Maybe you can even do an audit of that potential partner and see that their financials are lining up. There might be some discrepancies. I always have a tolerance between 1% and 2%. That you could be off, if you will. So checking their financial records as well. And there are a variety of other things you can do, but just off the top of my head, those are the things that I would immediately focus on.
Okay, awesome. And just to bring some context from my recent kind of like things, that I brought a CEO into my design agency recently. The way I vetted this person is a good friend of mine for like over 6 years. And I know he's a legit business person, kind of like mastermind together for 2 years before I brought him on as a partner, right? And also when I brought him on as a partner, I love this guy, but one thing that I brought him onto a call with you, Mr. J, and kind of like you said with both of us, and he said like, what do you think is fair for your equity at the beginning, and how do you build it up and everything? So it's like one thing that I know you're doing, Mr. J, is like you never give away too much. You know exactly what you're worth, and then you know how to give it away. So I'm just saying that because a lot of entrepreneurs like me would come to a kind of deal and like, okay, 50-50. Like it's kind of not experienced.
Yeah. I'm glad you made mention of that. And I know we did converse about that. And unfortunately, most young guys and young women in business just don't understand how do you structure certain business deals.
Yeah.
And first of all, let's talk about equity. First of all, when you have a startup, 10% of nothing is nothing.
Right.
So everybody's like, well, I'll give you equity. And some people will give away way too much equity. Here's the deal. When you're doing business, you want to be fair and equitable as possible. Of course, all of us want to make money. That's why we do business. I've left a lot of money on the table, believe it or not, because the person I was dealing with wasn't necessarily there wasn't a vibe there, if you will. Now, I'm not one to let your emotions lead you, because your emotions will keep you broke. You don't have to like everybody you do business with. However, that being said, when you start looking at your equity, the strength of your equity, when someone comes in, you guys are listening on the podcast, when someone comes in, they say, I'm going to use Ethan as an example. Ethan has a company. And I like Ethan's company. It's doing well financially. I like the projections. I like his infrastructure. I like his managerial team. I like the executive team. I like the direction the company is heading. And I want to be a part of that company. But Ethan is a privately held company. It's not publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. So how do I get a part of Ethan's company? Well, I sit and I meet with Ethan. Ethan and I discuss, and I ask him, is there an opportunity for me to partner with you in any capacity? And say Ethan does, and say, so you like, and I said, well, I'd like to have equity in your company. Okay, great. And Ethan says, well, and I said, well, what are you grossing annually? Ethan says, I'm grossing $10 million a year. And that's what he's grossing. That's what he's grossing in revenue, so to speak. But he wants to buy into the company. He says he wants 10% equity of the company. Well, that equity has a numerical value attached to it. Okay, you have to understand. And let me say this to all of you. Stop trying to take so much cash, man. That's a sucker move. The money is always in the equity or in the stock.
Right.
I'm going to say this to you again. A lot of times people will be like, hey, man, I'll give you $100,000 in cash. And it looks good. I believe me, 100 bands is 100 bands. I totally get it. But I think I'd rather have $100,000 in stock, or maybe $50,000 in stock and $50,000 in. So if I got equity, you can have that equity vested over a certain period of time. If you do an equity deal with anybody, I will often suggest that you put a clause in that deal called a first right of refusal, meaning I bought into Ethan's company. It cost me $1 million to buy into his company. So when you're partnered with someone and they buy into your company, you just don't partner with them. They should be bringing some type of monetary value, if you will, something in the form of monetary value that qualifies them to have that equity portion. Let us suppose me and Ethan do the deal. Everything's going great. Mr. Johnson, 5 years later, says, you know what? I want to sell my equity. I want to get out of Ethan's company. Well, because of Ethan's clause, he has a first right of refusal. Now I have to sell my equity. The first person I have to go to talk to about it is Ethan. So that way Ethan can get control back of all of his equity of his company. Now, here's the downside to a first right of refusal. At the time I got the equity, say my equity share was only worth $100,000, right? But 5 years later, now that equity is worth $1 million and I have 10 points. So that means in order for me to sell it to Ethan, the minimum expectation would be, hey, give me $10 million for my equity, but that's the value of it. Now we can always lower that. Or he might say, you know what, I'm not willing to pay that. And then now I have the right. First right of refusal. I gave it to him. He refused to take it back. Now I can go into the open market and sell it to someone who might be interested in partaking in that company. So again, when you're looking at equity, look at the numerical value of the equity, look at the percentage of the equity. You know, many guys are giving away 25 and 30% of their company. And I'm like, my God, why would you do this? The only way I would give away 30% of my company, someone would have to give me $500 million. I just would never do that. There would have to be such a huge influx of capital for me to give up such a substantial portion of equity and ownership in my company. And again, as I said to you and to your business partner, Sagi, know your worth, know your value. And even though you might not be where you want to be financially as far as this part of your company is concerned, that's why we have projections 3 and 5 years out. That's what we're striving for. That's what you're working hard to achieve. And that's your goal. And let us suppose hypothetically you do achieve those goals. Excuse me.
Yeah.
You do get that done. Now, this guy might have came in with 50 grand and now that 50 grand is worth 4 million. Is that a fair exchange for you? No, it's not at all. No, it's not at all. And this is why I try to tell guys, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Just like, it's so much like what we talked about back then when I had this business partner that wanted to come in and, you know, that's what you told me. You told me like, you know, what you're looking at, Sagi, is not a fair exchange. Right? 100%. So we dropped that deal, but that was because you told me that it would.
I'm glad it helped you because if you remember a few months back, you had another person wanting to buy in.
Exactly.
It was $1 million or something. But when you look at the breakdown, it wasn't fair. And here's another thing I want to tell you guys. Listen carefully. All of you, get your ear close to wherever you're listening, listen carefully. Whenever you're doing a business deal, whenever they write the agreement, they're going to write that agreement to their benefit. Let me say that to you again. Whenever you're doing a business deal and the other party is writing up that agreement, this is why you need an attorney. They're going to write that agreement to their benefit. Don't misunderstand. That's that attorney's job, right, to look out for their client. And so when I tell my young guys, I appreciate your friendships. Believe me, I really do. I have friends, but our paperwork protects our friendship, right, so that we can continue to stay friends. Because once you get money involved in friendship, we all know what can happen.
Right.
It's inevitable. So what you want to have there is just the appropriate documentation. And remember, the paperwork protects your relationship and know the value of your equity. Now, again, 10% of nothing is nothing. Right. And so if you have nothing and you say, well, I gave a guy 10% and he came on board and that's a fair, I gave him 15%. We started this, you know, it was my concept. I had done some legwork, but he came on board and he did A, B, C, D, and E. It was valued at this and then we're growing the business together. That's fair. But to have someone come in and get a huge portion of your company without doing any of the groundwork, without doing any of the legwork, and you're trying to scale the business up, you want to make sure that the individual you're partnering with, number one, is someone you want to be in business with. Number two, respects what you've already done. This is very important. Respect what you've done. And number three, is this someone that you can develop and coach to move the business forward as you start transitioning to other endeavors? Because there's another piece of advice I want to tell all my young people who are listening. If you say to Mr. Johnson, I'm a chef, then that's how I perceive you. If you say I'm a designer, then that's how I perceive you. If you say I'm a police officer, then that's how I perceive you. If you say you are a businessman or a businesswoman who happens to own a drone company, who happens to own real estate, who happens to own CBD, now I'm a businessman. And that's why I encourage all of you to think about, to become businessmen and women and not lock yourself in just to one aspect of business, because you're not even really, people say that I'm an entrepreneur. No, you're self-employed. Mm-hmm. That's called self-employment. Yeah. You're self-employed. Entrepreneurs develop and create other opportunities for other people. And particularly, one of the ways that I was very successful in business was by partnering with multiple different individuals. And here's another thing. You don't need 30 and 40%. You can take 10%. You can take 7% and do very well for yourself. Yeah. Just imagine this. And this is just good advice for all who are listening. There is no law or no limit as to how many businesses you can have. There's nothing. So don't limit yourself just by locking yourself into one industry. Be a jack of all trades and a master of none. And then you have the true opportunity to create multiple revenue streams, which we all talk about, passive income, which we all talk about. We all talk about this crap. And Mr. J he's telling us on this podcast what to do. Yeah. This is how you do this. And then eventually over time, you know what'll happen? You'll have 8,000 coming in a month here, 7,000 coming in a month there, 10,000 coming in a month there, 12,000 coming in a month here. And you're not even working for it. And you know how I got all these things done, Sagi and Ethan? Partnerships.
Exactly.
I got two thoughts for that, to be honest.
Sure, go ahead, buddy.
So I don't know if I agree with that statement, at least at the start. Because I feel like a jack of all trades is a mastermind. I get that, but as you're starting out, can you truly do that and build something great if you're dividing your attention?
Well, you got to keep in mind now that your mind, that's a start out. Mr. Johnson's been doing business for 30 years. But that's I've been doing business for 30 years. So understand what I'm saying. Now, if you're just starting, that's an entirely different perspective. But you know what? There are people on who are listening to us who aren't just starting. They have been in business for 5 and 8 and 9 years, and they find themselves kind of, what do you want to call the word, stagnant. They're not growing. They're not expanding. So, and the only way you can do that is to grow your network and to have access to different people with different opportunities. So, of course, if we're starting out, you're absolutely right, Ethan. If you're just starting out, you want to focus on the one thing you're focusing on. But let us suppose you're 5 years in, 8 years in. Let's look at Elon Musk. Now, everybody remembers him from Tesla and SpaceX, but most people forget about the time he was at PayPal. You know, they forget that he'd done all these things. So then he started creating different opportunities for himself. Now, am I saying everyone's an Elon Musk? No. But what I respect about what he was doing is he did not limit himself just to the car.
Right.
I'm just going to make a car.
Yeah.
Now he's partnering with who? NASA. There's that partnership again. Yeah. You see, so that's what I'm saying. And a lot of us limit ourselves with partners. We don't take advantage of partnerships because we don't know how. I think partnering with the right people is one of the best things an individual can do.
Yeah.
Yes. Because you know what it does, guys? It puts you in various industries.
Right.
Yes.
I completely agree. And I'm seeing it in my own world right now where I'm looking, when I find the right partnerships, it works great. But I think I'm just really at the beginning, and I'm really. How about for the end of this episode, Mr. J, can you coach me on a specific thing that I think encapsulates what Ethan just said and what you just talked about? Is that okay? Can we do like a demo? Okay, cool. This is a coaching call anyway.
Say a demo. Explain to me what you mean. Let me make sure I understand you correctly.
Cool. So I just want to give you a case of a partnership I'm bringing on right now, completely fresh. Today was the meeting, right? And you can coach me on it. You can say, how much is it the right thing to do right now? And is it and what percentages,
Roger that. Understood. Cool. All right, shoot, what you got?
All right, cool. So to anybody who doesn't know, I own Israel's largest design blog. Not such a big deal because there's no design blogs in Israel so much. So, but anyway, I have a large design blog in Israel, right? And so I have about 15K subscribers on my email list. They get a weekly newsletter. Like I'm selling online courses. I have my bootcamp, 4-month bootcamp, which is like a physical hybrid course that I have partnership with another college, and that's been running for 5 years. There's a lot of operation around Pixel Perfect, but it's not my main thing. My main thing is my studio, my agency, which right now, working with Start Summit and everything, I'm growing. And I brought in a CEO, I brought in a head of UX. I have a lot of things going on over there, and it's money time to grow. Like, this is it. If I don't grow in my agency, that would be very bad. And so we're really focused on growing. On the other hand, this came this opportunity, which I've been kind of seeking for the past kind of year or so, to launch an e-commerce part for Pixel Perfect, my Israeli blog. And because designers, this is the blog for designers, they love to buy Mac gear and gadgets. like
Okay.
everything for the Mac and computers and everything like that. And I just didn't want to do it myself. Obviously, I wanted someone to lead it, right? So I had this like partnership almost happen, but the guy dropped. He didn't really, have time to run it. But all of a sudden, I'm like, the guy that I actually buy all my Macs from, I had a problem with my computer recently, and he fixed it perfectly. He was like, perfect service, super kind. And I'm like, man, I'm buying this Macs from you. Like, do you want to maybe partner up and run? I'll give you access to my blog, and we'll have this kind of like pixel perfect e-commerce shop for Macs and gadgets.
Right.
And you will run it. I will let you 100% run it, operate it. You will be in charge of it, but we'll split revenue. And he was like, let's do it. So we met today, and it seemed like a very positive thing. Like for me, there is not a lot of involvement at the beginning. It's not too much of my focus, because all I have to do is pay my developer to talk to this guy with the Mac store, to now to kind of like put together the operational part in my website in Pixel Perfect. And we initially agreed on 50-50 split of the profits themselves, but this guy's paying for paid media and everything like that, and is tracking all the data and everything. Everything is going to come from him running it. And I'm just going to blast my email list to get people to buy, right? So I'm just going to like send some emails out, which is not a big deal for me on my end. So basically, I'm not seeing it as a high capacity kind of thing, but it does kind of like tackle Ethan's kind of thing where like, is this the right thing to do when I need to really focus on my agency 100% of the time? Or is it a good thing to do because this is the opportunity we met? It's a great opportunity for him as well, right at this moment, because he's looking to grow, but he has a e-commerce store and he wants to get to the designer market. Like, this is perfect for both sides. And it might bring a lot of revenue because it's an e-commerce platform now. Like, I just connect to a running platform that he's already making money, he's already profitable. And he's handling everything, delivery, support, everything. So yeah.
Right. Ethan, you have any thoughts?
Feel free to call me out.
Yeah, that's a good question. I just know that, and this is just me personally, again, I'm trying to scale to 10 million myself. So something I've learned, I was talking to someone, they said that when you scale your first million, you got to focus on one thing. And then after you scale from 1 to 10 million, then you can start diversifying your income sources. But I don't know. For me personally, whenever I've diversified my time to other things, my revenue in my other locations go down because it's still me running the show and I'm not fully self-sustained yet. So that's just my thought.
Oh, no, listen, that's a good point to bring out, and why we have to focus on several words in corporate that most young people struggle with. Number one is time management. Number two is delegation and follow-up. The reason when you divide your time, your revenue drops because you have no one in your position that can do what you do. And so this is but then I think about this, but now I want to scale my business. How can I scale my business if I have to be there all the time? I'm always working. I'm not.
You're like a slave to the business.
I'm a slave of my own. I'm a slave now. And listen to this is what Mr. J is saying. I get it, guys. I understand what you're saying. Mr. J, I got it just to focus on. I get it. And I'm not telling you not to do that for the first 2 or 3 years. But believe me, as with all things, you'll do it 2 or 3 years and then you're going to get what of it? I'm tired of doing it this way. It happens to everybody. There has to be a better way. I want more money. I want more quality time. Isn't that what always happens? Well, the way you do that is by building something called succession. You see, if you are the person driving your ship, you don't have a COO. You don't have, Ethan, you know this. What do I call CJ? Number what? Number one. Because he's my number one guy. I have all these other guys and they're just as great and I love them and God knows everything's cool. But this guy, if something happens to me, he knows what the hell to do. That's what you guys don't have. You see, everything is incumbent and dependent upon you. So if you go down, your business struggles. And so what I'm saying to you is the way you offset that is called sacrifice. Now here, most people don't want to sacrifice anything. This is another thing I see with young people. You sacrifice a little money to pay for that help. If I was many years, me and Marie sacrificed many years because I needed those people to be able to pay them. You following me? I had to pay them so that we can move forward, because I was doing what you guys are doing it, trying to do it what? All by what? Myself. And that's not the way to go. So what I'm saying to you is this, Ethan, you're right. Your first year or two, year three, you're absolutely right. You just focused on that. But here's what I want you guys to get from this conversation. Start considering a succession plan. Who do I have right next to me that I could turn over my business, that I could trust with the corporate accounts, that could really run the business? What if I got COVID? What if I was sick? What would happen? And if you don't have a succession plan, how can you really scale your business? Because you're kind of spinning in your wheels, if you will. These are just honest conversations that people have to have. Now, you've done the right things again. You said, Mr. J, I brought another guy on board. That way, you're just not having to dedicate all of your time. Now he can pick up those duties, right? Yeah. That's how you do it. Is it a sacrifice for you? We're not going to put your business out on a podcast, but I know it is a sacrifice. But it is a necessary sacrifice, because 2 years from now, it'll be the best investment you ever made. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just my opinion.
So it's like, it's like I'm looking at it as I'm going to invest just a bit now, but he's going to run the whole thing. And now that I also have a CEO on board with Contrast, that's obviously right. So if I allocate some time to helping this guy start out this other part of my business, God, my CEO could step in and take care of the,
But here's the effective. What is an effective CEO? Now, I've been a CEO for many years, had hundreds of employees, managed tens of millions of dollars. What does it mean to be an effective CEO? Because ultimately, you and Ethan, or whoever's listening, you're the chief executive officer of your company. Here's what I tell people. A fish thinks from the head down. Everything is your responsibility. Everything is your praise, and everything is your fault. It is your company. You started it. It's your vision. Now, how do I become an effective CEO? It's simple. There are 1,000 books out there, how to persuade people, how to increase your sales. Man, it is simple. If people like you, they will work well for you. But if people like you and respect you, they'll do anything for you. And that's been my secret throughout my whole career. Mm-hmm. How do I treat my team? How do I lead them? Do I micromanage them, or do I delegate and follow up? The first thing I want all of you who are listening to me is this. If you're a young CEO, you must develop a skill set of delegation and follow-up. One of the things I used to do many years ago, I'm getting off topic here, but it really helped me early in my executive days, was something called MBO. M as in Michael, B as in boy, O as in Oscar, managing by objective. Each week, I would meet with my executive team Monday at about 1 o'clock, right after lunch. And then that week, we would set a goal. What is the goal for the month? Be it revenue, marketing, sales, whatever. What is our goal for the month? And then each person is assigned whatever their particular responsibility is. And each week, every Monday, we will follow back up. Where are we at with our progression? Where are we at with our goals? Where are we at with our target sales? How are we comparing? How are we tracking this year as compared to last year? How are we tracking this year as opposed to last year when COVID was at its peak? You have to become not just a great leader, but you have to be astute financially to see how your business is going, to track your profitability, and that way you can truly measure your progress. So again, there are a lot of things I would tell you guys to do as far as being an effective leader. You got to become an effective leader, because at the end of the day, you do not make money for your company, your employees do. And if you have to make the money for your company, then you're an employee. And I just want you guys to understand that. Now, how do I scale my business? You need people. If it's not done through automation, you're going to need someone. Now, how do I get the best people around? It's easy. You do your due diligence. You have to be an excellent leader. And trust me, you will find the individuals that you need to grow your business. But you must be a great coach. You must give them the tools to be successful. You must set them up for success. Don't assume anything because they should know that. They should know what to do. No. Let me ask you guys, and for all of you who are listening, how many training programs do you have available for your employees to increase revenue? What skills, what is the script we use to attract new clients? What's the incentive we use to draw new businesses? What are we doing to scale our businesses outside of just saying we want to scale our businesses? Are we putting together the infrastructure in place to truly scale it? And this is part of my mentor program, because I mentor mostly CEOs. How do I become effective? How do I get that business to $10 million? And what I want to tell everybody is this: there is no one way. Okay. You don't have to go do what I did or do what someone else has said. Of course, you want to get as much advice as possible. But at the end of the day, it is your path. It is your journey. You just want to be smart with your money and get great people around you. So I didn't mean to be long-winded with that, but I know we're talking about partnerships, but also I think it should be partnerships/leadership. Because even when you partner someone, you are not equal.
Mm-hmm.
You are not. Even though that's my partner, me and Marie are married. I'm using my wife. Somebody said we're equal. There's no equality here. What are you talking about? I'm totally responsible for the well-being and the maintenance of my wife and family. It's just that simple. I don't even need it to be equal. But even though we're still what? Partners. Do you understand? So even in business, even though you're partners, you are not equal. And you need to be mindful of that. Because usually by you being predominantly the owner of it, there's still the bulk of the responsibility is going to fall on you. So let's really focus on effective leadership skills, effective communication skills, and high standards. I want to say this to Ethan too. Ethan, this is the way I want you to move forward. If you go to focus on something and you see your revenue is dropping, I don't want you to look at your staff. I want you to look at yourself and say, okay, what am I doing wrong? Because I know you and I know you can do that. You just have to look at, Ethan is so talented that what he is doing now is too small for him. He might not believe me, but I do. It's too small. But he's at the stage where he needs to be. And in 10 years, 15 years, this is another thing I want to tell everybody. Just indulge me. Listen, where is this nonsense that you got to make $1 million in 2 years? I'm going to give you an example. And I think I shared this with you, Sagi. If you look at your business like a baby, newborn baby, you started, say you've been in business 5 years, right? Can you take a 5-year-old child and make it 15? No. It takes literally 10 more years for that child to become 15. So if you look at your business like your children, you can't make a child go from 3 years old to 8 years old overnight. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. So this whole crap that I got to scale my business in 2 years, I'm at 10 million. And that's ridiculous. You guys are all so young. You have plenty of time. I think most young people forget that you have time to get to where you need to be. But this mindset of, man, I'm supposed to be making $2 million a year. How long you been in business? 4 years. What you grossing? Oh, I'm doing about 800,000. How many people make $800,000 a year in the world?
Not many.
Not many at
Small.
all.
Yeah.
And so when I tell guys, keep things in proper perspective. I'm not a fan of Instagram and I'm not a huge fan of YouTube. Do you know why? Because they sell BS. They got this ideology that everybody has to be a millionaire. Everyone should be making 7-figure deals and all. This is just asinine. The average citizen in America makes a little over $50,000 a year. That's real. That's the truth. That's statistics. And none of us are in that position.
Right.
No. So really keep things in perspective. Understand how to grow and scale your business. I cannot scale my business if I do not scale myself. I'm going to say this to you again. You cannot scale your business if you do not scale yourself. I'm going to say it to you again. You cannot scale your business if you don't scale yourself. You're spinning your wheels and wasting your time, and you become very much unproductive, disenfranchised, and frustrated. And there's no reason to do any of that. Knowledge is the key.
Got it. All right. So I would say at this point, we will end with this. And we definitely crossed our 20-minute mark.
It's all good.
But it's all good. We're learning. And guys, if you listened and you enjoyed this episode, I think so many insights and so many takeaways. My brains are the cog the cog wheels in my brain are right now. It's turning around. So anyways, I hope you guys learned a lot from this episode and gained value from it. Please, if you did, rate us on Apple Podcast, on Spotify. Please, it means the world to us if you do that. And also write a nice review. Like, we would love to know that you're getting value from this podcast. Let other people know. Share it on LinkedIn. Share it on Instagram. I want to shout out Lior Zafrani, one of our listeners, who shouted us out on Instagram, or sorry, on LinkedIn. This guy is just amazing. He's an inspiration himself. So thank you so much, Leo, and thank you for sharing the podcast with your following. So guys, thank you again, and see you on the next episode.